Welcome to Changing Course. I'm your host, Maya Adam, and today our guest is one of the most famous entertainers on the planet. Terry Fator started out as a ventriloquist, and he became the inventor of an entirely new genre of entertainment that combines ventriloquism, singing, comedy, and hilarious celebrity impressions. He gained national recognition when he won the second season of America's Got Talent, and not only does he pack theaters night after night, but he also uses his talent to support charitable causes. Terry, we are so grateful to have you with us today.
Oh, thank you for having me. This is just a delight.
Terry, I've read about your amazing story, which started when you were 10 years old, and you apparently stumbled upon a book about ventriloquism. Can you tell us that story?
Yeah, I was supposed to be doing a report for Valentine's Day for my school when I was 10. I was in the fifth grade. So I went to the school library, and for people who are younger, I'm from a generation where we used to have actual physical cards, and we called it a card catalog. So we would have to go in, and you would have to use the Dewey Decimal System and try to figure out where your book was. So you would go to this massive cabinet with tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of cards in it, and then you would flip through the cards. Well, I was trying to find a book on Valentine's Day so I could write this report, and I overshot, and it said ventriloquism for fun and profit. Well, I was always an entertainer. I loved to get on stage and entertain and do things. And every year I would take part in the school talent show. And so I had sung, I had done magic at one time. I even got a book on hypnosis and tried to do that, but I couldn't do it because I couldn't hypnotize my friends. So I didn't do that for the talent show. But I was always doing things. I would do like a poetry recitation and other things. So I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, oh man, this would give me something new to do for the talent show, and there's no other ventriloquist. So like if I did magic, there was 5 other magicians. If I sang, there was 10 other people that sang.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking there's nobody else that does ventriloquism in the school. So I checked the book out, I took it home, and I started to read it. And as I'm reading it, it's talking about doing the substitutions, saying A, B, C, D, E, so you just go A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, So I'm thinking, wow, I can do this. So, now when, so I started working on it, and then I thought, okay, I think I can do this. So I went down to Sears, I got $10, and I bought a little puppet. Crazy enough. Here we are in 2023, and you cannot do this. But at 10, I would babysit the next door neighbors.
Right.
Their kids were like 3 and 4. And so basically all I did was sit there and watch TV while, play with the kids. Cause I always loved to play with the kids. And so, I had a younger sister that was around that age. And so I was very good at babysitting. And then once they went to bed, I would just watch television. So I used my babysitting money, and I went and bought my little puppet and started doing shows. And I just fell in love with the art. By the time I was 11, I said, I want to do this for a living. I really do. I want to be a professional ventriloquist. And then I got another book that had a picture of a contract, and it said $500 to play a nightclub. So here I am, 11 years old, and I'm thinking, $500. I'll be rich. So yeah, I got the bug, and I never looked back.
That's amazing. I wonder, because I've just been thinking about this, and I had a bit of a similar experience. At the age of 10, I discovered classical ballet, and I had this crazy idea that I wanted to be a professional ballerina. And Terry, I had a ballet teacher tell me at the age of 10, you're a lovely person, but this is not going to happen for you. So kind of like invest your energy elsewhere. And I remember thinking, why would one take away a childhood dream from somebody? Even if it's never going to happen, wouldn't you at least want that child to have that dream to kind of propel them through life? So my question to you is, did anybody ever say to you, give it up? Like this isn't the right thing to do?
All the time. Yeah. That was a regular thing. Unlike most children, though, I was very defiant. Well, most children are defiant. I was very defiant. I didn't like to be told no, and I didn't like to be told what I could or couldn't do. So of course I had, my father was the worst. As far as that, he really discouraged me. He wanted me to be a minister. He wanted me to go into the ministry. And I
Mm,
just never felt that calling. I wanted to be a minister for him, to please my dad. I mean, that's how it works psychologically with most of us. We want
yeah.
our parents to be proud of us, but I just never had the passion for that. So I was able to convince him that I wanted to use my ventriloquism as a ministry and to be a minister that used ventriloquism. And that's really the only reason he approved of it. He had not only disapproved, like when I was 8, I was a magician and I was getting really, really good. I could manipulate coins and cards and do all kinds of things. Because I'm the kind of person that I have ADHD, and it's very hard for me to get interested in something. But once I really get a passion for it, it's like I'm all in.
Yeah.
And so 2 years in, my dad just took all my magic stuff, threw it all away, and said I got too obsessed, and he didn't like that. He wanted me to concentrate on God and the ministry. And so I had to be very careful with when I was practice my ventriloquism. But there was so many times when he would tell me, no, you're not going to be able to do this. You're not very good. You're not talented. And I would just, in defiance, I would say, I'm going to prove it to him. I'm going to show him. And I never did get the joy of him telling me, wow, I was so wrong. But I did it for myself. I wanted his approval. I never got it. He died in 2014, and I never got his approval. But I feel like from heaven, he's approving of what I've accomplished.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, Terry, did your dad ever get to see you performing? Because I've seen you perform and I get goosebumps. It is a thing of beauty that you do.
Yeah, it's funny. We cut off contact, not on my side, on his side. He was a very authoritarian person. He really was all about control, 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 control. He could not accept a relationship with anyone, especially a family member, that did not look at him as the end-all, be-all, ultimate authority. Mm-hmm. And so I was, it was probably the end of 2001, maybe the beginning of 2002. So here I was, I was 40, was I 40? No, trying to think. Yeah, I was in my 30s. I was like my mid 30s, mid to late 30s. And I finally came to this, I screwed up the courage, and I went and talked to my dad, and I said, Dad, you got to understand something. I am no longer a little boy, and I have my own opinions, and I do my own research. So you have to realize that in order for us to have a relationship, you're going to have to accept that I am an adult, a free-thinking adult who has my own thoughts and my own ideas. And I would love to discuss these ideas with you, but I just want you to know I am no longer to the point in my life where I have to submit. He wanted me to submit to everything and agree with everything he said, no matter what. And I said, I can't do that anymore. You have to let me be an adult, and we can have an adult relationship. Literally, he got it. He turned around. He didn't say anything after I said that. He got in a car, left, and I never saw him again. He just could not accept that. Yeah. Now, that being said, it was very heartbreaking. And I felt like, well, I guess that's that. And, but after he passed away, my cousin went through some of his stuff and said that he had a scrapbook of me on America's Got Talent and different articles that had done. So he was proud of me, and he did. And then I found out that he used to brag before he died. He lived up in upstate New York. And of course, at the time I lived in Texas, and now I live in Las Vegas. And my cousin said that he would brag to everybody that he was my dad and that was his son. And so it was kind of unfortunately, we weren't able to reconcile in person. Mm-hmm. He was very abusive, so I would have. And I'm the kind of person that has truly forgiven everyone in my life. And I think that's a huge key. If you don't forgive, you're locked in, man. You're locked into a traumatic situation. And it doesn't mean you have to be friends with somebody. That's something I learned, is that I can be 100% forgiving and still not have that person in my life. So, and I truly forgave him, and I do not hold any animosity toward him, and I did not even at the time. But that's how I was able to just move on. And it's unfortunate, but it really, I actually, when I found out that he had that scrapbook, I just broke down. My wife was next to me and I just started to weep because I'm like, oh my God, he was proud of me, so that was kind of cool.
Sometimes, Terry, people, I think they're just too proud to do
That's him.
Right? And they're just too proud to
really
say,
proud.
I messed up, I'm so sorry. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
well, that's
true.
That is such powerful advice, that the power, of forgiving people, and just because actually when we hold those grudges, that grudge is taking up space in our hearts and in our minds, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You're right. Yeah. And the funny thing is, it's like drinking poison and thinking your enemy is going to kill your enemy. It's not going to kill your enemy. It's killing you. And to be honest, this idea somehow that our hating somebody or resenting somebody, it does not affect them at all. In fact, they probably never think about us, but we're eaten up with it, and it can really cause arrested development. It can stop us from progressing and becoming the person we need to be. So forgiveness is, I think, first and foremost, it's one of the most important things we have to do in our lives, is to absolutely forgive. But C.S. Lewis said that forgiving someone does not mean you have happy, wonderful, warm thoughts toward them and think they're a great person. It doesn't. And, they can be the biggest jerk in the world and still hurting other people. And we can forgive them and move on with our lives and really just let them leave the trail of devastation and hurt without me being one of the collateral damages because I can't get over what they did to hurt me. And that's just been, the story of my career. I've been so taken advantage of, and so many people have hurt me, especially once I got rich, and started making really good money and got famous. I mean, the wolves came out, and I got to tell you, it doesn't matter. I've forgiven everyone, and I work on myself, and I work on being a better person and trying to move on in my life. And it's really impossible to move on if you have hatred and bitterness. It really is. Yeah. There's just no way. So forgiveness is not when God tells us, and I'm a very religious person, when God tells us to forgive, he's not saying it for himself. He's saying it for us because it's the best thing for us. So he's advising us that, hey, holding on to that bitterness is not going to end well for you,
Yeah. Yeah, that's such good advice. So powerful. I know that that's going to leave a lasting impact on our listeners, because that, I think, is maybe one of the most powerful messages we can give to people, especially in today's world.
And I think there's a barometer. I figured this out, and I had to come to a point. It was really interesting where I wasn't sure if I had really forgiven them. But, when I pray and I meditate every day and I pray every day and I just pray to, I'm not a person who believes that there's one religion or one, I happen to be a Christian, but I certainly don't push that on anybody. And I don't believe everybody has to be that, whether you're Jewish or Muslim or Mormon or Christian or whatever, it doesn't matter. I think, to pray to a higher power is a powerful thing. But it was the day that when I was doing my prayers, and I actually came to the point where these people who had done terrible things to me, both my mother and my father were very abusive, very abusive. I mean, we're talking physically, verbally, emotionally, in every possible way, they were abusive. And I came to the point where I was praying for them and I said, God, I really would like it if you forgave them for what they did to me and do not punish them for what they did to me. I got to tell you, that was huge, because we want justice and we want punishment. Now, that doesn't mean God will. I mean, God may, I don't know. I'm going to let him do whatever he wants. Yeah. But for me to be able to release that, even the desire for them to be punished for what they did to me, that was huge. That really, I felt a weight lift off of me, and I'm like, well, now God, do whatever you want, but I'm not going to celebrate if and when their punishment comes, but I certainly don't want it, and I'm not wishing for it. I just want you to forgive them. I want God, I want you to forgive them for what they've done to me. And I think that's a real sign that you have forgiven someone, when you don't wish for hell on them, you know?
And it's the biggest relief for you in that moment, right? Because you give up that anger.
Yes.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
Terry,
And then
there's-
it's like, I could start forgetting. Isn't that funny?
Interesting.
I didn't hold on to it anymore because I wasn't waiting for them to get theirs. You know,
Yeah.
It was like, okay, I let it go. I gave it up. I gave it to God. You know, now it's done.
Amazing.
Now I can just move on with my life. And I really don't think about it much anymore.
Wow.
Unless I'm doing an interview like this, you know,
Oh,
but it's
Terry,
good because I want other people to be able to utilize these nuggets of wisdom that, you know, I've had to learn through the University of Hard Knocks.
Yeah. There's so much that you've said that like I can connect with. And I mean, firstly, I grew up with a Hindu mother and a dad who, you know, lived through the war and didn't believe that there was a God. And then I married a Jewish guy. And so we have everything going on here. And my mom always,
That's so great. I love that.
my mom said to me, teach the kids that God is everywhere and that you can just look at the sunset. And it resonated with me. So I love that description. And another thing that comes to mind when you say the thing about forgiveness is that years later, after that 10-year-old experience where the ballet teacher told me to give up on my dream, I actually spent 10 years as a professional ballerina in Germany. And I found out that she had put up pictures of me in the studio, like newspaper clippings.
There you go. Same story. And you know, that's the beautiful thing is that there are two types of people. One is like you and myself, who when somebody says, sorry, but you're never going to be able to do this. And we say, screw you. Don't you tell me what I can and can't do. You know, I'll show you, you know. Well, to my point, I had become a ventriloquist and I was a lead singer of a band, but I still used my puppets in the show. So we would go in and do these shows, and I would pull out a puppet about every 15 minutes and I would do a routine. And so I told my dad one day, I said, you know, I should learn to yodel because I think it would be really fun for my puppet to yodel. And my dad looks at me and says, it's impossible to learn how to yodel. Don't even try. You can't. You can either yodel or you can't. Well, I didn't know how to yodel. Well, I went and got myself a tape of Roy Rogers yodeling, and I worked for a year. And then one day he came to one of our band shows, and I just got my puppet up there, and I just had him up there, and I had my puppet yodel for him. And the funny thing is, he never, ever even acknowledged that. Wow, you know, it wasn't like, wow, you sure proved me wrong. He just didn't even, it was like it was a non-event. It was an event for me though. Yeah. But that's how we are though, is that we don't take somebody telling us you can't do something. And then there are others who crumble and say, well, I guess, you know, they're the expert. They know, you know.
So we need to, when people express doubt, we need to think, wait a minute, maybe they're not right. Maybe I can do this, right?
Yes, but it doesn't just work with that. I think it also works with health issues. Yeah. You know, when the doctor says, man, you're screwed, you'll never walk again. Man, you can't, you know, you've got 6 months to live. I mean, there are countless stories of people that say, I'm not accepting that. Yeah. And you know, the mindset is so unbelievably powerful. I don't think people realize just how powerful their minds are and how they create events and they create futures for themselves by the way they think, you know. And I'll never let a doctor tell me. In fact, I went in for surgery, shoulder surgery, and the doctor said, this surgery is very major and you're not going to have full use of your arm probably for about 6 months. And I said, that's not true. I said, I've got a show next week. And I can assure you, I'm going to be back in 2 weeks and I'm going to be completely healed in 2 weeks. And the doctor said, no, not possible. 2 weeks later, I go in, he looks at my wife and he goes, your husband is Superman. I've never seen anybody heal so fast. And I told him, I said, I told myself that I was going to heal fast and you or nobody else was going to convince me of otherwise. So, you know, people just need to understand how powerful their thoughts and their affirmations by speaking are. And I kept telling my wife, I said, I'm going to heal faster this. And I even told my wife, I said, my doctor's is going to say, I've never seen anybody heal so fast. And sure enough, 2 weeks later, he said, I've never seen anybody heal so fast. And I said, I told you that's been kind of that's been the way I've lived since I was a child. I told you I was defiant. Nobody told me what was going to be right for me in my life. And my career, you know, I just decided what I was going to do, and I grabbed onto it. Unbelievable.
I would say you were determined instead of defiant.
Yes.
I think you were incredibly determined.
I love that. Yeah, the word defiant was my dad's. So he would, and
yeah.
he didn't like it. But you're right. I love the determined. Determined is much better than defiant.
Yeah, yeah. Amazing advice. Terry, I saw the footage of you on America's Got Talent with kind of Simon Cowell saying you're like, one of the best entertainers he's ever seen on the show. And then I saw you singing opera without moving your lips. I mean, you are a phenomenal performer. How has it felt for you to have this incredible skill and be at this level and still have it be important to you to stay normal and grounded, which I know is one of your trademarks?
For me, first of all, it was a huge blessing that the success did not come until I was 42. I dreamed of when I was 15 and 12 and 18 becoming a big star. And I even auditioned for several movies in the Dallas area. One of them was The Bad News Bears Go to Japan. I auditioned for that. And I had all these visions of I was going to be on the screen and I was going to be famous and blah, blah, blah. And it didn't happen until I was 42. And so that's in my mind now, it was a huge blessing because I had already kind of, been through a lot. I'd seen a lot. And I realized that whole thing is an illusion. And then when you become famous and you become a celebrity, and then you get to know other celebrities and you get to actually meet a lot of your idols and people that you grew up, you realize that they're no different whatsoever than we are. I'm no different than you name the celebrity. It doesn't matter how big. Tom Cruise. The only difference is that he does things and he's recognizable everywhere he goes, and he gets mobbed, which, by the way, I wouldn't want. I wouldn't want to be Elvis, because that would be like living in prison, but their lives are exactly, we see tiny snippets of life from them on the screen or on a record or on a recording or whatever, but they're exactly like us. They eat, they poop, everything we do, they do. It's the same exact thing. So to take that kind of mystique away as if there's something different or better than them, or they're bigger, or they're not, they just may have more talent or whatever. So that was huge. Also, my faith in God kept me very grounded. I just realizing, in my seeking and my search, I just realized that, every person is so incredibly precious to God. Everyone. I am no more important. The President of the United States is no more important. The Queen of England, the King of England, doesn't matter. No one is more or less important to God. Everyone is so incredibly precious. And partly was also growing up. My parents had a janitorial business, so I was a janitor from the time I was about 8 years old until I was in my 20s. And we're talking, cleaning ashtrays, cleaning toilets, cleaning, buildings and all of this. And so, it's very hard to have a big ego when you started out as a janitor, and I never thought that I was any less or any better than anyone else. So now I just realized I appreciate the people that clean my showroom after the show, because that's what I used to do. I know that they're valuable and loved by God, and that so it's just really Anita Morjani has a book called Dying to Be Me that is so profound. I probably read it. I read it about 2 or 3 times a year, and I do. It's like so profound. And one of the things she says is, everybody says you have to get rid of your ego, but she said, I don't believe that. I think we need to realize just how awesome we are. But the problem is when problems happen is when you think other people are not just as awesome as you are. Yeah. So you think you're the awesome one and they're not. But when you look and realize how just we are all unbelievably powerful spiritual beings that are loved by God, absolutely, in every possible way, that then it's very easy to look at everyone as an equal. I don't look at celebrities as my equal. I look at everyone. I look at the ushers in my theater as equals, because we all are equals. We're all precious. So, that's really my secret to not getting and it also helps to have a wife that would smack me upside the head if I ever thought No, but
Always
so
good
that
to
does
have.
help. To get a spouse that will put you in your place when you think you're when
Keep
you
you
get a little
real.
too big for your britches.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, how wonderful. That's such great advice. Everybody plays a part, and without those players, the show doesn't go on, right? Everybody's
That's
as
right.
important.
That's right.
Terry, have you ever, the theme of this podcast is changing course, and we're trying to sort of help people navigate this rapidly changing, turbulent world that we're in right now, with a global mental health crisis and a lot of really difficult stuff going on. If you had to give advice to people at this moment in history who are struggling to pursue their dreams or are struggling to navigate this changing world, what advice would you give to young people?
My advice is, well, first of all, when you take God out of the equation, there's really no way that you can't be hopeless. And I'm not talking about the Christian God or the Hindu God or the Muslim God or the Jewish God. I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about something bigger than yourself. It's very similar to like an AA 12-step program. They say you gotta look for something bigger than yourself. Doesn't matter what that is. First of all, you have to put yourself in the place that you are in the universe, which is beneath something greater than you. Yeah. And then you pursue the best for yourself and at the same time pursue the best for others. So, but you don't want to let others walk on you because a doormat is not going to be good for anyone. A doormat is, you're going to be feeding a narcissist ego, but you're certainly not helping yourself. And I think that I have found, and the key to contentment and happiness is, first of all, do what's best for you. In other words, don't make the decisions that are going to take you down that path, whether it's drugs, alcohol, whether it's the other things that are going to be taking you down a spiral of despair and depression. And then secondly, focus on helping other people who need help. And listen, I think most of our psychological and our societal issues would vanish if we stopped looking at ourselves as victims of others and started taking care of ourselves, number one, and then taking care of others second. Yeah. And it's really all about, there's one word that encompasses it all, and that's love. Love yourself and love your neighbor and love others. And honestly, I just think a lot of this stuff, we are so consumer driven, we got to get that next iPhone. We got to get that next whatever. We got to get that next big TV. And that's such an empty, vacuous. Or if only I could get rich and famous, that would do it. I can promise you that is not the answer. I mean, if you think being rich and famous is going to be the answer, just look at how many drug addicts, alcoholics, and people who have died in terrible circumstances that were as rich and famous as they possibly could be because of the despair. It's when you think that's the goal and you think that's what's going to make you happy, you are going to be sorely, sorely mistaken, and you're going to be miserable when you get there. You have to find your happiness inside of you and through your love and service to others. And then the rest of it will all fall into place. But you also have to visualize, and you also have to verbalize what you want out of life. I would say, back before I was a headliner in Vegas, I would come to Vegas and I would look at billboards of other entertainers and I would say, one day I'm going to be on that billboard and I am going to be a Vegas entertainer. Now, I didn't just leave it at that and turn around and walk off. I went back and I wrote new routines and I worked on new characters and I worked on new voices and I worked my butt off, tens of thousands of hours, so that when the opportunity came for me to be a headliner in Vegas, it happened. So it's a two-part thing. First, you have to verbalize it. You have to visualize it. Then you have to really work on it. So if you want to be an author, you want to be a singer, don't ever go a day without writing or singing or practicing. If you want to be a guitar player, every single day, get that guitar out, even if it's for 10 or 15 minutes. I can promise you in 10 or 15 years, you're going to be really, really good at what you do. So you just can't stop. You just, and don't make the goal getting there. Make the goal the fun of doing something that you enjoy and love. And then it's a win-win regardless. If you never get rich and famous or you never, win American Idol or America's Got Talent, who cares? You'll be able to pick up your guitar and play for your friends. And there's a lot of joy in that,
Yeah, that's beautiful. So you're saying, see the dream, say it out loud, prepare for it with all your might and enjoy the journey as you get there.
That's right. That's right. That's right. And you won't enjoy the journey or the destination if you're not happy now. So you got to find your happiness now.
Yeah. Amazing. Terry, there was a point at which you sort of pivoted. You were performing with a band and you pivoted to your solo career. And one of the things that I've been asking some of the guests on this podcast is how to know when it's time to pivot. Because if I think about my own career, there was a point at which I gave up dancing and went to medical school. And for me, I waited until it was almost like I knew I couldn't continue in dance. And I wondered whether maybe I should have seen the signs a little earlier, or how does one know when to pivot versus, we live in a world where we're taught not to give up ever. And so when is it the right thing to give something up so that something better can come?
That's such a profound question. That's really a good question. I think, that's where a lot of meditation and prayer, if you will, if you're not a religious person and you don't want to believe in God, fine, just meditate, be mindful, do breathing exercises. These are things where you can get your psyche to nudge you and to help you to see where you need to be going. For me, it was, I always had these visions that I could do bigger and better things. And now the interesting thing about me, and I've said this to my wife, Angie, she knows this to be true of me. I don't want to be more famous because I want the accolades. I want to be more famous so that I can reach more people with the happiness and joy that God has given me as a gift to give to other people. So the more famous I am, the more people will be able to experience this joy, because I believe that I am an evangelist of joy. I am what my dad wanted me to be. I am a minister. I'm a minister of laughter and joy. And so the more famous I get, the more people will be able to experience this lightheartedness. And people, I pray before every show that God uses me to just implant joy into people's hearts and give them a little break from some of the more difficult and some of the depression and the fact that the bills are due and they don't know what to do, just to give them a lighthearted moment and to hopefully take it with them and make the world a little more joyful place. So to me, that's a big, profound thing. It's as good as a preacher. It's Billy Graham, but it's a Billy Graham of joy, And so I feel like that when we do that reflective and we do that meditate and go inside ourselves, we can get the promptings. But for me, I always felt like there were bigger things. And my band, while it was fairly successful for an unsigned band, I just felt like, we were to the point, I was in my late 20s, and I was in my mid 30s. And I said, this is just not going to happen for me. And I really think I can do bigger things as a solo artist. There's no way a band that's in their mid 30s is ever going to get famous. But a ventriloquist, who knows what can happen with a solo ventriloquist if I'm good enough. And I was right, but I got to tell you, it was hard. It was really, really scary. And, courage is not being afraid. Courage is being willing to act even though you're afraid. So don't think that because you're scared to change your career paths that you're not courageous. The only way you're not courageous is if you say, I really wanted to be a therapist, but I don't know. I think I should just continue selling insurance. That means you're not courageous. The courageous person says, man, my dream is to be a therapist. I had a good friend who wanted so badly to be an entertainer, but I got to be honest, he just was awful. He was the worst entertainer I've ever seen in my life. He tried so hard, and I would encourage him, and I'd be like, dude, keep trying. But he was so bad. He just was bad at everything. And one day he said, I'm going to do something different. He went to college, and we're talking, this guy was in his 40s. He went to college and he got his family therapy license, and now he's a family therapist and happier than he's ever been. And he loved the years that he tried to be an entertainer. So if you're in something, if you're doing something that you hate, that you really feel like is just not for you, then start looking at some other things. And like I said, you can sell insurance, or you can work at Taco Bell, or you can, whatever job you have. If you want to be a writer, you can still write.
Yeah.
Or you want to be a songwriter, or if you want to sing, you can still do those things. In fact, what I did was, like, when I was doing as a janitor, I wanted to be a ventriloquist. So you know what I did? I listened to the radio and I sang all the songs on the radio without moving my lips so I could practice my ventriloquism. And now look what I'm doing. I'm singing and doing impressions of singers. I'm doing exactly what I did when I was mopping floors and cleaning toilets when I was 15. And now I'm getting millions of dollars for it. Because I didn't say, oh, I'm despaired. There's nothing. I'm going to be a janitor for the rest of my life. And there's nothing wrong with being a janitor. That's a great job. It's a very, it's a wonderful job to have, and especially if it's feeding your family. But if you have a dream, as you're working on, if you're a janitor and that's not what you want to do and you want to be a writer, start coming up with plots and characters. And when you get home, write those down and then do a little writing. Even if you spend 20 minutes a day on it, that's not going to take too much time, but you'll be amazed at what happens when it accumulates over years.
That's such great advice. So do what it is that you dream about. One of the other guests on the show was Barry Sonnenfeld, the director of Men in Black. And
love him. Yeah.
I love him. And he said, he never believed in working your way up. He was like, I wanted to be a cinematographer. So I bought a camera. And when people said, are you a cameraman? I said, yeah, I'm a cameraman. I'm a man. I have a camera. That's what I am. And he said he just did what it was that he wanted to do and then got better at it. And I thought that was
interesting.
Such powerful
Notice
advice.
though that he visualized in his mind and he verbalized.
Yeah.
You see, it's not hooey. It's real. You visualizing and verbalizing. And I did the same thing. I was working at GameStop. I was selling video games, which I love video games. So it was a fun job anyway. That's how I was, bringing money to help pay the bills, was working at GameStop. And people would say, so what do you do? And when I would meet people, I'd say, I'm a ventriloquist. I never said I work at GameStop. I'm a ventriloquist. And then what's really fun was one night, I was doing a show, at some place that had hired me in Dallas. And I invited all my, coworkers at GameStop to come and see me. They all came to the show and all of them were like, oh my God, you really are a ventriloquist. I say, I told you,
I love it.
So, but that's just like Barry, Sonnenfeld. It's like you tell people, I'll go back to, if you're an insurance salesman or saleswoman, and you love to play guitar, people say, what do you do for a living? You say, I'm a guitar player. I'm working at, I'm selling insurance, but I'm actually a guitar player, and you can't believe how much joy you would have if you could ever move out of doing what you're doing and get yourself as a guitar player in a band and you're making a living and you're paying the bills doing what you love. You just cannot imagine the life-changing, event that is for you to be making money doing what you love to do. And it's just, but even just working toward it, you're going to feel so good about yourself. And then even if it's just for yourself, interesting, because I used to, I was playing elementary schools and county fairs. So I'd be playing the little county fair next to the petting zoo and, as a ventriloquist and the clowns were around and it was very bizarre. And I'd be playing elementary schools. Well, after I turned 40, I really started assessing my life and I thought, you know what? The shot of me ever getting famous and rich is pretty remote because who's ever really going to care about a 40-year-old ventriloquist? But here's what I did. I looked at my life and I said, wait a minute. I don't have to work at GameStop anymore. I'm actually making a living performing with puppets. It's so much fun. And even if I never get discovered, when I play for those 5-year-olds and those 7-year-olds, in 50 years, when they're talking to their grandchild, I want them to say, I saw the best ventriloquist I ever saw when I was 7. And I said, that's my goal. That's what I want. I want every person to see me to say, that's the best ventriloquist I've ever seen, even if it's just elementary school people. Kids. And so people don't understand the power of that because when the time came and when America's Got Talent came around, I was prepared. I had already worked on being the best ventriloquist in the world. And let me tell you something. It's been 16 years since I won. And there has never been a year that I have not worked on writing a better show than the one I'm doing now and becoming a better ventriloquist. I did not look and say, I won the show. I'm done. Woo, I'm the best in the world. I said, no, I'm going to be better and better. And if you look at me compared to 16 years ago, I am infinitely better at my craft than I was. Why? Because I didn't say, well, I did it. I continued to work. And so the work never stops if it's what you love, and it's never work. I'm working on a new show right now for New York, and we're going to be opening hopefully in March. And it's the best I've ever done. The show I'm doing right now at New York, the best I have ever put together. I know this. It's absolutely, it's an objective fact. And the one I'm going to do next is going to even top it. So that's the key. You just got to keep pushing yourself and enjoying what you do. And if it never happens, who cares? Just be the best. Do the best you can, Have fun with it.
Incredible. That's incredible advice. Okay, Terry, I know you have a day to get on with, so I'm going to ask you one last question. I love the concept of you as a minister of joy. I think that is the most beautiful way to make everybody's dreams for you come true in one definition. But how you mentioned that you learned to sing when you were in your car because you would want to sing and you thought it looked goofy for the other people would see you sing. How?
I did.
I saw you singing opera, Terry, with a puppet and your voice was not moving. How? No.
It was me. It was not him. He can't sing opera. I can.
I had hoped we would.
To die, nel cuore resterà.
Yeah, that's a turtle.
Yeah.
So there you go. It. That is unbelievable. What a remarkable skill. And I feel so excited that we actually got to see you in action, even for a few seconds. That's so kind of you for doing that. Terry, you've inspired us today. You've given us so much to think about. I think this concept of just seeing it, saying it, practicing it, and enjoying the journey is so important. And I know that everybody will take that away.
I hope so. And, don't forget, I'm not the only minister of joy. Every human being on this planet is a minister of joy. And that can just be not getting all upset, whereas mindfulness and meditation can really help with this. We get so stressed out when we're on the freeway and we're in traffic or there's a long line at the grocery store. And when you can just be in the moment and be pleasant and a smile and a kind word and, you're changing the world. You're making the world a better place. Maybe a little bit, but it's like the ripples in a pond. You start that. So every single person listening to this and watching this, you are also a minister of joy. You're either a minister of joy or fear or hate. So make the choice to be the minister of joy. And the world will be a much better place for it. I can promise you that.
Thank you so much, Terry. I think that's a beautiful place to end. And we just hope that we'll be able to watch you continue to shine and make people laugh and bring light into this world. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.